On this episode of Money Matters with Jim Doyle, are your advisors playing on the same team? Our guests Victor Yoshida, Brian Rudy, and Claire Sutton share their professional advice. Plan more, worry less. This is Money Matters with Jim Doyle.
How you coordinate the services of your tax, legal, and financial people matters. We're witnessing a seismic shift as clients seek a more integrative approach to the professional services they receive. This is especially relevant for family businesses as they adapt to changing economies, looking to ensure not only the health of their businesses, but the family's financial futures as well. That's why I brought together a dream team to tell you how to get more. But first, let's go to Paige as we introduce the team concept of working with your tax, legal, and financial professionals.
How important is it to you that your advisory team work together? That would be your financial planner, your lawyer, your accountant.
Well, I think unless all three are on the same page, then you're at a disadvantage. So I know for us, our lawyer is more on the side, but our financial planner and accountant, it's teamwork. It's teamwork all the way.
I think it's a great idea. If anything, it would provide for more sort of an integrated, value-added type of service that a team of professional advisors could provide to me and my portfolio of my needs, I guess.
Well, I guess everybody should have their investment advisors, the accountant. You always have to liaise with them for all the financial advice and all the legal challenges that come along with family dynamics. So I guess I always use their services in terms of advice, in terms of investments, mutual funds, RSPs, and set up my own financial planning basically.
So what I think we're hearing is, unless you have your professionals on the same page, you're at a disadvantage. What's your feelings on that, Victor?
Well, we're finding more and more in family businesses, they're relying on putting together an advisory team. Internally, they may have someone that may help them with their marketing and their HR, but we find on the external side it's important that they have their lawyers and their accountants and their financial advisors involved.
My first question when a client walks into my office is, who's your team? I think a family business or a business person needs to have the right people in place. And that involves the accounting, the financial advice, so that everyone can coordinate.
So Victor, over time, do you find that the needs of the professional services need to grow as well as the business grows?
It does, because things change over time. Family dynamics change, business environment changes, tax laws change. So it's something that has to be constantly updated and looked at. And we recommend that you sit down at least annually with your professional advisors just to make sure that what worked yesterday still works today.
Wonderful. So Brian, as the family businesses grow, how do the needs for their legal services also grow?
Well, legal services become more complicated and legal budget increases. Some of the, when a business is starting out, they don't have the budget to do things properly, and as they grow and the business becomes bigger, the legal issues become more complex.
They need guidance, is that correct?
Absolutely.
And Victor, for yourself, where's one of the smaller challenges that you can help a business with as they start to grow?
As they start to grow, there's always a need for cash within an enterprise. So basically how to retain cash, and that is whether you try to look at ways of minimizing your income tax or looking at different ways of financing for your enterprise. These are all challenges that are constantly changing. Again, the financial environment changes, or getting credit might change. So all those type of things have to be taken into account.
Well, I definitely heard the aspect of getting financing for your business. We'll be right back.
I'd like to see my team of advisors set out sort of a program of meetings where they're connecting with me on an ongoing basis to understand the evolution of my needs.
In this segment, we're talking about upping the ante and building deeper relationships with your professional advisors. Where do you think that starts?
I think it starts with a meeting and a discussion, and an open discussion. When I have a new client, usually nowadays it starts with an email. First thing I do is bring them in, meet them, get to know who their team is. So communication.
Wonderful. So Victor, when you get referrals from other professionals, where do you take those conversations?
I think having an open communication with the client and making sure that they're realistic in their aspirations and where they want to see their business, where it wants to go. It gets even more complicated when it is a family business because there's other dynamics involved with children and things like that. So it gets a bit more complicated on family matters.
Now, Victor, I like where you're going with this. I met up with Claire Sutton, a clinical therapist, to share some insights. So, what is the difference between a subject matter expert and a trusted advisor?
Well, a subject matter expert is just that. They are experts in their subject matter, be it a lawyer, be it an accountant, a wealth manager, and when they're looking at the issues and challenges that companies or affluent families have, they look at it from one lens only.
So is there something that we could be missing if we just go that way?
When you look at it from one lens only, it's as if you're working from a silo, just looking at one piece of the puzzle. When you think of a system and a trusted advisor who's also a strategic advisor is savvy enough to call on another advisor of a different skill set to help with the problems.
Now, you've raised the words here, a silo approach. Could we tell us a bit about that?
Well, the silo approach is a solitary approach, and you're the expert and you're trying to answer all problems, whereas a team approach happens when you can call on other advisors. One person can't have all the answers. So they will be able to reach out to other trusted advisors with a different technical skill to help the business or the family of wealth reach their desired goals.
So what I think I'm hearing is using your professionals to anticipate problems and work as a team to better serve.
Absolutely. It's very much the team approach.
I like this idea. How are you going to get there? So what are the risks of professional advisors looking at client issues predominantly through their professional lens?
Any one profession has their expertise, and what's important when you have a client is that you recognize your limitations. I mean, I do corporate law, I can structure a business, I can sell a business, but I don't do tax.
Well, now I certainly don't want to be giving clients any legal advice nor tax advice. Okay, Victor, what's your thoughts on this?
There are certain specialties that require specialists in different areas, and we don't deal in U.S. tax, and sometimes we'll come across an issue that has U.S. tax consequences, and so we will refer that to another associate or a different firm. We're not experts in insurance, and so we would reach out for someone with that expertise.
Using the right language. Wow. Okay. Let's go back to Paige to ask, what are you looking for from your professional advisor relationships?
What would you like to see more of from your team of professional advisors?
Connection. I'd like to see my team of advisors set out sort of a program of meetings where they're connecting with me on an ongoing basis to understand the evolution of my needs.
I think I have a good team already, and I think I'm the go-between, so the onus is really on me to make sure that the people that I depend on get the information they seek in a timely way.
Well, I guess they're very important to me as part of my life. They're the one who give me direction in terms of future planning, tax planning, advising on the markets, how they're doing. So I guess they keep me up to date, and it's very important to have financial advisors as part of your financial learning, and basically you know how the future will look like. You can plan it properly.
So Victor, if clients are looking for better understanding from their professional advisors, where do you go with this?
I think it's very important that each client they have a good understanding of their financial plan, the strategies involved, the risks, and the benefits of each plan.
Do you think most of your clients see you as often as they should?
We try to. With us, we at least want to see them once a year, or if there are changes in their situations, of family dynamics or whatever. I think it's very important to keep abreast of everything.
We don't see our clients as often as we like because we don't have annual returns to do, tax returns. We tend to be more transactional, at least my practice. When there's an issue, a sale of a business or a problem with the business, we get called in.
So what I'm hearing is a bit more hunger for a little bit more connection.
I think ideally we would be involved in the overall planning meetings, maybe a yearly meeting or a quarterly meeting.
Perfect. More frequent meetings. We'll be right back.
Sometimes professionals want to be everything to everybody, and so it's frustrating to have timely meetings and contact sometimes.
Welcome back. People depend on their professional advisors. We're asking, how do they fit into their clients' lives? Victor?
I think we're quite essential within our clients' lives. They have to really be open with us and let us know everything. And I remember I had one client interview where the client said, I feel like I'm standing in front of you in my underwear because I was asking so many questions. But unless we know exactly what's involved with the client, it's really tough to do a plan for them, either an estate plan or even a financial plan for them.
And when you don't have all the facts, how does that affect your work?
It affects your advice. If you don't have the whole picture, it's hard for you to advise the client properly. So I like to have good communication with the client. I also like to have good communication with the advisory team. So I like to have permission to speak with the advisors about issues, about the client, so that we can put together a good plan.
So it's about finding out what's relevant. Listen, let's go back to Paige for some insights on enhancing client-advisor relationships.
If you had a magic wand, what would you like to see more of from your professional advisors?
Everybody, there's a premium for all of us on time, and sometimes there's delays in getting responses and delays on both parts, and I think that, sometimes professionals want to be everything to everybody, and so it's frustrating to have timely meetings and contact sometimes.
An inherent desire to better understand my needs at a strategic level. And I think that starts by not getting to solutions, but having a meaningful conversation about what are my needs.
I would like them to advise me on the investment side, on the tax planning side, on the estate planning side. So I guess if they help me with me and my family dynamics, how to set up all those plans in the future. And I think that will be the magic wand, as long as they keep me up to date all the time, basically.
Do you think it'd be fair to say that we're hearing a little bit of frustration here? Okay.
I heard some. I heard lack of communication, returning phone calls, and that is something I have to say lawyers can be guilty of. And it's one of the things that I think is important for all professionals, is to make sure you're communicating with your clients, getting back to them, and keeping that line of communication open.
I think it's just being proactive, and it comes down to planning ahead of time. I think it's important that all your professional advisors are aware of changes that go on in your life or in your business. I think those are the key items that I believe that we should look into.
So Brian, we talk about proactive advice, knowing what's relevant, what's changed out there. How good are clients at that?
Well, clients rely on their advisors to know what's going on, because the world is so complicated. So I think it's our job to keep up with the changes, and it's our job to communicate with our clients, and our clients hopefully are open to that.
Well, let's go back to Claire as she introduces us to a multidisciplinary approach to problem solving. So what's the value in taking a multidisciplinary approach to problem solving?
It's an immense value, Jim. A multidisciplinary team means each professional on the team has a different skill. So be it an accountant, a lawyer, a wealth manager, a therapist. So they come together with that skill set, and they also share complementary skills.
Claire, we were talking earlier, and you mentioned about solving the problems, not necessarily treating the symptoms.
Right. It's always easy to take a Band-Aid approach and treat the symptom. And that's just instant gratification. It works maybe for a little bit. But what you really want to do is get to the root cause, to really dig a little deeper and find out what's really going on here.
So how do we bring all of these minds to solving these types of problems?
You want to have them together to figure out what needs to happen here. Where does the company or the affluent clients, where do they want to be in 5, 10, 20 years? How do they maintain their wealth and keep the family together?
Now, do you find that most families want to direct their professional advisors, or are they looking for guidance and direction from those advisors?
Families are looking for value-added guidance. At the same time, advisors are wanting to understand where do they want to be? What's the vision that they have? What's going to work? And how do we get them there?
So solving problems so they stay solved. So Victor, in your experience, do you find that clients want to direct these conversations, or are they looking to the professional advisors for guidance?
I find that they're looking for us for guidance. They're not experts in tax laws or family law. So they're looking for us to help them out, to give them some sort of path or some sort of plan for their future. But it's important that it's a two-way communication street there.
Two-way. Brian, in your world?
I think people want guidance, especially in complex areas. Some of these business owners know what they want to hear, but you have to tell them, the honest truth.
The honest truth. Is that always a comfortable discussion?
Not always, and it comes down to making sure that reality and what they want, they're the same. They're the same.
Reality, that sounds a little bit painful. Listen, we're going to be right back.
Communication. Oftentimes when you're dealing with families and money, it's never straight and easy. There's a lot of emotion tied to this.
It's now time to get our panel's final thoughts on the Dream Team, getting more out of your professional advisor relationships. Brian?
I think if I had to summarize things in a nutshell, it's communication. Communication with your client, communication with the advisory team, and a highlight on personal meetings. I think in this day and age of email and text, I think personal meeting with your advisory team, with your lawyers, accountants, and financial advisors is a great first step to opening lines of communication.
To do it right, they've got to give you the time.
Yeah. People need to take time. They need to take time to deal with important matters in their lives. And I think you get a lot more out of a meeting than you do out of a text.
Wonderful. Let's go back to Claire for her final thoughts. So tell us, what are your final thoughts on this?
The biggest thing is seeing families and businesses as a system. You know, Jim, I'm a clinical therapist, so in my practice I see a lot of professionals, I see a lot of entrepreneurs, and I see a lot of families and families of wealth. And the biggest issue is communication. Oftentimes when you're dealing with families and money, it's never straight and easy. There's a lot of emotion tied to this. For me as a therapist, you're listening to the fear behind their questions. You're listening to their emotion, right? It's saying, our finances are an issue. How are we going to deal with it?
So should people reach out to the professionals, their lawyer, their accountant, their investment advisor, and encourage more of this team approach?
Absolutely. People should reach out to it, and advisors, trusted advisors, need to know what their limits are. They need to know their strengths and they need to know their limitations and know when to reach out to the other professionals that can help.
Last word on the subject is yours. Victor?
I think there's a common theme here, and it comes down to communication, communication with your advisors, making sure your advisors communicate with each other too, because there are certain strategies that we may need insurance products, or we may need certain type of financial products to help you out. So it's important that everybody work as a team, and again, keep that open communication.
Now, advice comes in many forms, and people hear things differently, okay? How do you help facilitate those calls?
Make sure that you understand. As a client, you should understand exactly what's going on. It is a complicated world out there. Accountants and lawyers always use certain jargon that sometimes it is confusing. So it's important that you stop and ask. If you don't know what's going on, ask what certain structures are, or what certain strategies are used for, what are the risks, what are the benefits of those structures. So again, it's important that you have that communication, and if in doubt, ask.
So Victor, I've got some key takeaways here. I wish we had more time. I want to thank Claire, Brian, and Victor for sharing their thoughts on money matters. Because financial aspects touch so many elements of our lives, it pays to get great advice. Plan more and worry less.